The rain had no mercy that night. It didn't fall it attacked, slamming against metal and glass as if the city itself had decided to punish someone it had long admired. Headlights blurred into white wounds on the asphalt, sirens screamed somewhere far away, and then came the sound no one could forget, the violent bone-deep explosion of steel tearing through steel. People would later say the crash happened too fast to understand. One moment, the black luxury car was slicing through the empty road like it owned the night. The next, it was airborne, spinning once, twice, before colliding with the concrete divider in a scream of sparks and fire. Inside that car was Adrian Vale. Billionaire. Visionary. A man whose name could silence boardrooms and move markets before breakfast. A man who had survived hostile takeovers, ruthless competitors, and a childhood so poor he rarely spoke of it. Tonight, none of that mattered. Blood spread across the steering wheel. The world tilted, then fractured into darkness. When Adrian drifted back toward consciousness, it wasn't the sound of sirens that reached him first. It was laughter. Soft. Broken. Unbelievably close. He tried to move. Pain exploded through his chest, sharp enough to steal his breath. His right leg wouldn't respond at all. Rainwater leaked through shattered glass, soaking his suit, mixing with blood until everything felt cold and unreal. "Hey, he's alive," a small voice whispered. Adrian forced his eyes open. The roof above him was crushed inward, hanging like a bent crown. Beyond it, through the rain, he saw two faces peering in. They were girls. Teenagers, maybe younger. Their clothes were thin, layered mismatches clearly scavenged rather than chosen. One had tangled hair plastered to her cheeks, the other clutched a ripped backpack to her chest like a shield. Their faces were dirty, but those eyes were terrifyingly alert. "Don't touch him," the smaller one said quickly. "He might be dead." "I'm not," Adrian rasped, surprised his voice still existed. Both girls froze. "You talked," the taller one said, half amazed, half afraid. Adrian tried to lift his hand. It barely twitched. Panic crept in, cold and logical. He knew injuries. He knew risk. And he knew, with frightening clarity, that if help didn't come soon, his money, his power, his name, none of it would save him here. "Phone," he whispered. "Call emergency." The girls exchanged a look. "We don't have phones," the smaller one said. "People like us don't keep things people steal." Adrian swallowed. Rain ran into his mouth, metallic and bitter. "Then get help," he said. The taller girl shook her head slowly. "Nobody comes here. Police chase us away. Ambulances don't check under bridges." Only then did Adrian realize where he was. The road curved above them, but the wreck had slid down into the shadowed underpass, a forgotten place where the city dumped its darkness. A place meant to be unseen. The smaller girl stepped closer, ignoring the rain, ignoring the danger. She studied his face carefully, like she was memorizing it. "You're rich," she said flatly. Adrian almost laughed. "Almost." "Yes," he whispered. "I am." She nodded once, as if confirming a theory. "Figures. Rich people always crash here. They drive too fast. Like they're running from something." The taller girl frowned. "We can't leave him. If he dies, they'll blame us." "They already blame us for everything," the smaller one replied. Adrian's vision blurred again. The world began slipping, sounds stretching thin like torn fabric. "Please," he said, quieter now. "I'll pay you. Anything." The taller girl's jaw tightened. "Money doesn't help when you're hungry tomorrow." Silence followed, broken only by rain and Adrian's ragged breathing. Then the smaller girl did something unexpected. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a frayed strip of cloth. Kneeling, she pressed it against Adrian's bleeding forehead with surprising firmness. "Hold still," she said. If you pass out, don't die. That's annoying. Despite everything, a weak, broken smile tugged at Adrian's lips. Why help me? He asked. The girl didn't look at him. Because no one helped us. The taller one glanced up the road. Sirens are still far. We need to move him or signal someone. Adrian's heart hammered. Moving him could kill him. Not moving him could do the same. Listen, he said, forcing clarity into his voice. There's a hospital 5 kilometers east. Big glass building. If you can flag someone, anyone. The girls exchanged another look, heavier this time. That hospital? The taller one said quietly. They kicked her out last winter. She nodded toward the smaller girl, who stiffened but didn't speak. They said no address, no treatment, the taller one continued. She almost died on the steps. The rain intensified, drumming harder, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Adrian felt something shift inside him, something deeper than pain, deeper than fear. A memory surfaced, his mother, sick and turned away from a clinic decades ago. A memory he had buried under billions and bravado. I'm sorry, he whispered. The smaller girl's hand paused for just a second. Then she pressed harder. Save your apologies, she said. Save your strength. In the distance, headlights appeared, an old delivery truck slowing, uncertain. The taller girl stepped into the road, waving both arms wildly. As the truck screeched to a halt, the driver shouting in panic, Adrian's vision narrowed again. He felt himself being lifted, carefully, clumsily. Rain, voices, urgency blending into a fading echo. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the smaller girl's face hovering close, rain washing clean streaks through the dirt. Don't forget us, she said softly. Rich men always do. And then everything went black. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional stories like this. When Adrian opened his eyes again, the world was too white. Too quiet. Machines hummed. Shoes squeaked. A nurse froze mid-step, staring at the man on the bed as if she were seeing a ghost. Someone whispered his name. And somewhere down the corridor, 2 homeless girls waited, soaked, shaking, and unaware that the man they had pulled from the wreckage was about to change the hospital forever, or destroy it trying. But Adrian Vale had not woken up alone. And what the doctors were about to discover would silence the room in a way no one was prepared for. The ceiling lights blurred as Adrian's vision sharpened in painful increments. Voices floated above him, layered and tense, some hushed, some sharp with urgency. A monitor beeped steadily near his left ear, each sound grounding him back into a body that felt heavier than it ever had before. Blood pressures stabilizing. CT scan shows internal bleeding, but it's contained for now. He shouldn't be awake yet. Adrian tried to speak, but only a dry rasp escaped. A nurse noticed immediately and leaned closer. Mr. Vale, you're in St. Catherine's Hospital. You've been in surgery for 6 hours. Try not to move. St. Catherine's. The name struck him harder than the painkillers. The same hospital the girls had mentioned. The same place that had turned one of them away. His eyes shifted, scanning the room. Glass walls. Sterile perfection. Expensive machines. He had donated millions to places like this without ever stepping inside the emergency wing. Girls, he whispered. The nurse frowned slightly. Girls. 2 girls, Adrian said, forcing each word. They brought me. The nurse hesitated, then glanced toward the doorway. Security escorted them out an hour ago. Something tight and unfamiliar clenched in his chest. Out. His voice cracked. They didn't have identification, she said carefully. And they were causing concern in the waiting area. Adrian tried to sit up. Pain screamed through his ribs, dragging a gasp from him. Alarms chirped angrily as the nurse pressed him back down. "No," he said, panic sharpening his tone. "Bring them back." "I'm sorry, Mr. Vale. Hospital policy." "Bring them back." His voice was weak, but the authority behind it was unmistakable. Years of command didn't vanish with blood loss. The nurse swallowed and nodded. "I'll inform the charge nurse." As she stepped out, Adrian stared at the ceiling again. Memory replayed the crash in fragments: the rain, the twisted metal, the girl's hand pressing cloth to his forehead. He could still feel it, steady despite the chaos. The door opened again, this time admitting a man in a tailored suit far too expensive for the ICU. His hair was perfect, his expression tightly controlled. "Adrian," the man said, relief and irritation colliding in his voice. "Do you have any idea what kind of hell you caused?" "Elliot," Adrian murmured. "His chief of staff." "You're loud." Elliot exhaled sharply. "The board is panicking. Media is sniffing around. The crash was caught on traffic cams, some of it leaked already. We've managed to keep your condition quiet, but—" He stopped when he noticed Adrian's gaze harden. "What?" "The girls," Adrian said. "Where are they?" Elliot blinked. "Girls?" "The ones who saved my life." A pause. Then a dismissive shrug. "Some homeless kids, from what security said. They were interfering." "Don't worry, Adrian. They'll forget this ever happened." Adrian's heart rate spiked, setting the monitor beeping faster. "They didn't forget me," he said quietly. "I won't forget them." Elliot leaned closer, lowering his voice. "This is not the time for guilt-driven charity. You nearly died. Focus on recovery." Adrian turned his head slowly to face him fully. "If they hadn't been there, I'd be dead." "That's not charity." Elliot opened his mouth to respond, but the door slid open again. The charge nurse entered, followed by security, and behind them, two familiar figures. They looked smaller here. Wrapped in thin gray blankets, hair still damp, shoes leaving faint muddy prints on the polished floor. The taller girl stood stiffly, jaw clenched, eyes scanning for exits. The smaller one stared straight at Adrian, unblinking. The room went very quiet. Adrian felt his throat tighten. "You came." "We didn't want to," the taller girl said. "They said we'd get in trouble." "You won't," Adrian said immediately. "I promise." Security hesitated, looking to Elliot for direction. Elliot said nothing, his face unreadable. The smaller girl stepped forward until she stood beside the bed. She looked different under the harsh hospital lights cleaner, but more exposed somehow. The dirt had hidden how young she really was. "You're alive," she said. "Because of you," Adrian replied. She shrugged, but her eyes flickered. "Doctors help rich people better." Elliot stiffened. The charge nurse shifted uncomfortably. Adrian met the girl's gaze. "They should help everyone." Silence stretched. The taller girl crossed her arms. "They didn't help her." She gestured toward the smaller one. "Last winter. Fever. Couldn't breathe. They told us to leave." Adrian closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something in his expression had changed, hardened, focused. "What's your name?" he asked the smaller girl. She hesitated. "Lena." "And you?" he asked the taller one. "Mara." "Lena." "Mara," Adrian repeated softly, committing them to memory. "I owe you my life." Mara scoffed. "Life doesn't pay rent." Adrian almost smiled. "Almost." "I can make sure you're safe," he said. "Warm. Federal educated." Lena tilted her head. "Why?" "Because I should have done it before," he answered. Elliot stepped forward abruptly. "Adrian, this is not appropriate. You're vulnerable right now." We can arrange for social services." "No," Lena said sharply. All eyes snapped to her. "They split people up." Mara nodded. "And they lose you." Adrian felt anger bloom hot. "Precise. No one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go." The charge nurse cleared her throat. "Mr. Vale, we really can't." Adrian cut her off with a glance. "Then you should review your policies. Starting tonight." The room froze. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Elliot's face. A doctor entered then, tablet in hand, mid-sentence, and stopped short when he saw the girls. "What's going on?" the doctor asked. Adrian answered before anyone else could. "These two saved my life. I want them examined. Full checkups. No forms. No questions." The doctor hesitated. "Hospital protocol." "I'll buy the hospital," Adrian said quietly. The words landed like a dropped scalpel. No one spoke. The doctor swallowed. "I'll arrange it." As the girls were gently guided toward the door, Lena looked back at Adrian one last time. "People like you," she said softly, "always say big things when they're scared." Adrian met her gaze without flinching. "Then stay," he said, "and watch what I do when I'm not." She didn't answer. The door closed behind them. Elliot exhaled slowly. "You just made a very public mistake." Adrian stared at the door long after the girls were gone. "No," he said. "I just remembered who I was before I became invisible to myself." Outside the room, alarms suddenly began to sound rapid, urgent, unfamiliar. A nurse shouted for help. The doctor rushed back in, face pale. "Mr. Vale, there's something wrong with your scans. Something we didn't see before." Adrian's pulse thundered as the monitors spiked again. "What kind of wrong?" he asked. The doctor hesitated, then spoke quietly. "The kind that explains why you should have died at the crash site." The room filled with motion all at once. Curtains were pulled, lights brightened, machines rolled closer to the bed. Adrian watched the faces around him change professional calm, replaced by something tighter, more cautious. "What does that mean?" he asked again, voice steadier than he felt. The doctor hesitated, eyes flicking briefly to Elliot, then back to Adrian. "It means the impact from the crash didn't cause the most dangerous injury. It revealed it." "Revealed what?" Adrian pressed. "A congenital vascular condition," the doctor said. "Rare. Extremely rare. You've been living with it your entire life without knowing." Elliot stiffened. "Are you saying this wasn't because of the accident?" "It was aggravated by the accident," the doctor replied. "But the rupture we repaired, it was already there. One wrong movement, one spike in blood pressure, and he could have collapsed at any time. At home. On a plane. In a meeting." The words settled heavily in the room. Adrian let out a slow breath. "So I was already dying." The doctor didn't contradict him. "What now?" Adrian asked. "We stabilized you," the doctor said. "But there's another risk. A secondary weakness we spotted during imaging. If it progresses, you'll need a far more complex surgery. One we don't perform here." Elliot stepped forward. "Then we move him. Private jet. Best specialists." The doctor nodded. "That would be advisable." Adrian stared at the ceiling again, the beeping monitor suddenly sounding too loud. Best specialists. Private jets. Escape routes money had always provided him without question. And yet, all he could think about was a small voice in the rain saying, "Don't forget us." "Before I go anywhere," Adrian said quietly, "I want to see them." Elliot's patience snapped. "Adrian, this is not the time." "It's the only time," Adrian cut in. "Because I might not get another." Silence followed. Then the doctor nodded once. "I'll have them brought back." When Lena and Mara returned, they looked cleaner now, hospital scrubs replacing their soaked clothes, hair loosely tied back. Someone had given them sandwiches. Mara was chewing defensively, as if expecting them to be taken away mid-bite. Lena didn't eat. She stood near the wall, watching everything. "They poked us with needles," Mara said to Adrian when she saw him awake. "Said it was routine." "And?" Adrian asked. "And they didn't kick us out," Mara added, suspicious. "Yet." Adrian smiled faintly. "That's a start." Lena studied his face more closely now, noticing the pallor, the wires, the faint tremor in his hand. "You're scared," she said. He didn't deny it. "Yes." "Good," she replied. "Now you know how everyone else feels all the time." Something about the way she said it flat, unkissing, cut deeper than anger ever could. Adrian motioned weakly toward a chair. "Sit, please." After a moment, Lena did. Mara hovered, then followed. "I need to tell you something," Adrian said. "Because you deserve to know what you walked into that night." They waited. "I shouldn't have survived the crash," he continued. "Not just because of the impact. There was something wrong with me long before that road. The doctors say. I've been living on borrowed time." Mara frowned. "So you're dying?" "Not today," Adrian said. "But closer than I thought." Lena absorbed this silently. "Then why are you worried about us?" Adrian met her gaze. "Because when I was unconscious, bleeding in the rain, none of my money helped me. None of my power. Only 2 girls everyone else pretended not to see." Mara shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't do it for that." "I know," Adrian said. "That's why it matters." Outside the room, Elliot paced, speaking urgently into his phone. The tension of the world Adrian belonged to was already creeping back in, pressing against the fragile space inside the ICU. "I'm being transferred," Adrian said. "Soon. Somewhere far from here." Lena's eyes narrowed. "So this is goodbye?" "No," Adrian said. "This is a pause." Mara snorted. "That's what people say when they don't come back." Adrian reached slowly to the side table and picked up a small object the nurse had placed there earlier. A simple hospital bracelet, Lena's name printed on it. "I don't know what happens next," he said. "But I do know this. You will not go back to the street." Lena stood abruptly. "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I mean it," Adrian said. "Even if I don't wake up from the next surgery." The words hung heavy. Mara looked away first. "Don't talk like that." "I have to," Adrian said, "because I don't get to pretend any more." A nurse entered, clearing her throat. "Mr. Vale, transport will be ready in 30 minutes." Adrian nodded, then looked back at the girls. "There's something else." Lena crossed her arms. "Of course there is." "The doctor mentioned your charts," Adrian said. "Lena, your lungs. That infection from last winter never fully healed." Her jaw tightened. "I'm fine." "You're surviving," the doctor said gently from the doorway. "There's a difference." Adrian watched Lena's defenses rise like walls. "If I go," he said carefully, "I want you both to stay. Get treated. Properly." "And if we don't?" Lena challenged. "Then I'll have failed you," Adrian replied. "And I'm trying very hard not to do that anymore." For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Lena asked quietly, "Why didn't anyone see this before?" "Your sickness. Your crash. Us." Adrian didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low. "Because people learn how not to look." The intercom crackled overhead, announcing a code somewhere else in the hospital. life and death continuing its endless rotation. Mara stood and walked closer to the bed. "If you disappear," she said, "and this turns out to be another lie." Adrian met her eyes. "Then you can hate me. I'll deserve it." Lena exhaled slowly, like someone stepping onto thin ice. "We'll stay," she said. "For now." Relief washed through Adrian so sharply it almost hurt. As the transport team arrived, preparing equipment, Elliot finally stepped back into the room. His expression was tightly controlled, but there was unease beneath it now. "The specialists are ready," Elliot said. "But there's a complication." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "There's always a complication." Elliot lowered his voice. "The condition you have, it's genetic." Adrian stilled. "Meaning?" "It means," Elliot continued, "someone in your family carried it. And according to the preliminary data." He glanced toward the door, where Lena stood watching. "You're not the only one here with symptoms." The words landed with a quiet brutality that no one in the room was prepared for. Adrian's gaze shifted slowly from Elliot to Lena, who stood frozen near the door, her fingers curling into the thin fabric of the hospital scrubs. "What symptoms?" Adrian asked, though some instinct deep inside him already feared the answer. The doctor stepped forward cautiously, tablet held close to his chest. "During routine checks, we noticed irregularities in Lena's oxygen saturation and vascular response. Subtle, but familiar." Lena laughed once, sharp and humorless. "So now I'm sick too? That's convenient." "This isn't about convenience," the doctor said gently. "It's about patterns." Adrian's heart pounded harder than the machines could track. "Explain," he said. Elliot cleared his throat. "The condition you have doesn't appear randomly. It's inherited, passed down through bloodlines." Mara's eyes widened. "What bloodline?" She looked between Adrian and Lena. "You think they're related?" "That's impossible," Lena said immediately. "I don't have family." "Not like that." Adrian swallowed. "Lena, do you know who your parents were?" Her jaw tightened. "My mother died when I was little. I don't know my father. Never did." The room seemed to contract, air growing heavier. Adrian's voice dropped. "Where did you grow up?" "Different places," Lena replied. "Shelters. Streets. Wherever they didn't ask too many questions." Adrian closed his eyes briefly, memories surfacing uninvited. A woman with tired eyes. A hurried goodbye. A name he'd tried not to think about for decades. "No," he whispered. "That's not possible." Elliot's expression darkened. "Adrian, there were things in your past that were managed. Records sealed. Situations resolved quietly." Adrian snapped his eyes open. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Elliot continued carefully, "that before your company, before the money, there was a settlement. A non-disclosure agreement. A woman who refused publicity." Lena stared at them both, confusion giving way to something sharper. "You're talking like I'm a mistake." "No," Adrian said quickly. "You're not." "Then what am I?" she demanded. The doctor interjected softly. "We're not making conclusions yet. But the genetic markers—" "Stop," Lena said, raising a hand. Her voice trembled despite her effort to steady it. "Just stop." Mara stepped closer to her, placing a hand on her arm. "Lena." Lena shook her head, eyes never leaving Adrian. "You don't get to look at me like that. Like you're seeing a ghost." Adrian's voice was barely audible. "I think I might be seeing my past." Silence swallowed the room. A nurse knocked lightly, reminding them of time, of schedules, of the transfer waiting. Reality pressing in. Elliot spoke again, lower now. "Adrian, We need to move. This conversation can wait. No, Adrian said. It can't. He looked at Lena, really looked at her, the stubborn tilt of her chin, the sharp intelligence in her eyes, the familiar defiance. Things he recognized too well. If there's even a chance, he said, you deserve answers. Medical answers, at least. And what about the rest? Lena asked. What if the answers say something else? Adrian didn't flinch. Then I'll face that too. Mara broke the tension with a bitter laugh. Wow. Rich guy almost dies, wakes up, and suddenly finds a secret family. Is this how your world works? It's not my world anymore, Adrian said quietly. Lena turned away, pacing a few steps as if the floor beneath her had become unstable. All my life, people looked through me, stepped around me. Now suddenly I matter because my blood might match yours. That's not why you matter, Adrian said. You mattered before the crash, before the hospital, before any of this. She stopped and faced him again. Then why didn't you find me? The question cut deeper than any accusation. I didn't know, Adrian said, and that ignorance cost me more than I ever realized. Elliot glanced at his watch. Transport is waiting. Adrian nodded slowly. Then here's what will happen. Everyone looked at him. Lena stays, Adrian said. So does Mara. Full care. No exceptions. Elliot hesitated. Adrian. And Elliot, Adrian added, his voice steel beneath the weakness, if anything happens to them while I'm gone, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. Elliot stiffened. Understood. The doctor exhaled quietly, then nodded. We'll run more tests. Carefully. As the transport team began preparing Adrian, Lena watched in silence. Something in her expression had shifted, not softened, but sharpened, like someone forced to stand in a truth she hadn't chosen. They're going to cut you open again, she said. Yes, Adrian replied. You might not come back. That's true. She swallowed. Then say it. Say what? Say what you think I am to you. The room held its breath. Adrian met her eyes. I think you're someone I failed, and someone I won't fail again if I'm given the chance. Lena nodded once, as if filing the answer away for later judgment. That's not the same as what everyone else is thinking. No, Adrian said, but it's honest. The transport team lifted the bed, machines rolling with practiced precision. As they moved toward the door, Lena stepped forward impulsively and placed her hand on the railing. Don't die, she said. I hate unfinished stories. A faint smile touched Adrian's lips. Then you'll have to keep reading. As the doors closed behind him, the room felt emptier, louder in its quiet. Mara exhaled slowly. So, she said, looking at Lena, apparently you might be related to a billionaire. Lena sank into a chair, running a hand through her hair. I don't care who he is. Mara studied her. You care more than you're admitting. Before Lena could respond, the doctor returned, face serious. There's something else you should know. Lena looked up. What now? The doctor hesitated. The genetic markers, they suggest the condition progresses faster in younger patients. Mara's breath caught. Meaning, the doctor said carefully, whatever is happening to him may already be happening to you. Lena stared at the floor, the weight of it all pressing down at once. Outside, somewhere beyond the walls, a helicopter lifted into the night, carrying Adrian Vale toward another operating room, another narrow chance. And in the hospital he left behind, the truth he'd outrun for decades had finally caught up quietly, relentlessly, and with consequences no amount of money could silence. The hours after the helicopter lifted away stretched into something shapeless and heavy. Lena sat unmoving in the chair, elbows on her knees, staring at the tiled floor as if it might offer answers if she stared long enough. Around her, the hospital continued its relentless rhythm, carts rolling, voices paging, doors opening and closing, but it all felt distant, like sound traveling through water. Mara paced. She stopped, started again, rubbed her arms, then finally sat on the edge of the bed and leaned forward. "Hey," she said softly. "You still here?" Lena didn't look up. "I don't feel sick." "That doesn't mean anything," Mara replied. "I don't feel rich, but apparently that's happening too." Lena almost smiled, but it didn't last. "What if they're wrong?" "Doctors," Mara scoffed. "They're wrong all the time." The door opened quietly. The same doctor returned, accompanied by a nurse carrying a tray of vials and equipment. Lena tensed instantly. "We need to run additional tests," the doctor said. "Blood work, imaging, genetic screening." Lena's jaw set. "How long?" "Tonight. Some results by morning." "And if I say no?" Lena asked. The doctor didn't answer immediately. "Then you'll walk out with questions instead of information." Mara looked at Lena. "We've lived with questions forever." Lena closed her eyes. Then she held out her arm. The needle prick was sharp but brief. Lena watched the vial fill, dark red spiraling into glass. She felt strangely detached, like this was happening to someone else. When they wheeled her down for imaging, Mara walked beside the gurney, refusing to let go of the rail. "If they tell you something bad," she said, "I'll punch someone." Lena huffed. "That'll help. I'm serious." They slid Lena into the machine, the tunnel swallowing sound. As the scan began, Lena's thoughts finally ran free. She thought of the crash, the blood, Adrian's face in the rain, the way he'd looked at her in the ICU, not with pity, but recognition. That frightened her more than any diagnosis. When it was over, she was brought back to the room and left alone with Mara again. Time dragged. Night deepened beyond the windows. Somewhere far away, Adrian lay beneath blinding lights, his chest opened, surgeons moving with precise urgency. His blood pressure dipped, then stabilized. A surgeon murmured a quiet curse as an unexpected complication appeared. Hands moved faster. Decisions were made in seconds that would echo for decades. Back at St. Catherine's, Elliot stood in a private conference room, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and furious. "No, you cannot leak that. Not even a hint. If this gets out—" "No, listen to me. There is no story without confirmation." He ended the call and stared at his reflection in the dark glass. For the first time in years, control felt fragile. Adrian was supposed to be predictable. This, homeless girls, genetics, secret surfacing, this was chaos. The door opened behind him. A nurse hesitated, then spoke. "The girls. Lena's results are coming back." Elliot nodded once. "I'll be there." When the doctor returned to Lena's room, the air shifted instantly. Lena sat straighter. Mara stood. The doctor didn't sit down. "The initial results confirm what we suspected." Lena felt her chest tighten. "Just say it." "You have the same genetic markers as Mr. Vale," the doctor said. "The same vascular condition." Mara's breath left her in a rush. "So she's—" "Not in immediate danger," the doctor said quickly. "But the condition is present. Early stages." Lena stared at him. "So I'm a ticking clock." The doctor chose his words carefully. "You're someone who needs monitoring and treatment, which we can provide." "And him?" Lena asked. "Is he alive?" The doctor nodded. "He's still in surgery." Something inside Lena loosened, just a fraction. Elliot stepped forward. "Lena," he said, attempting a calm tone, This doesn't change who you are. She looked at him sharply. Then why does everyone look like it does? Elliot faltered. Because there are implications. Like what? Mara snapped. Inheritance? Money. Secrets you don't want out. Elliot ignored her. Adrian didn't know. That much is true. Lena folded her arms. That's convenient. I'm not asking for trust, Elliot said. I'm asking for time. Time is exactly what I might not have, Lena replied. Silence followed. The doctor cleared his throat. There's more. Lena braced herself. Of course there is. The progression rate in your case, the doctor continued, is faster than average. Not dangerously fast, but significant. Mara's voice shook. What does that mean? It means stress, poor nutrition, exposure, things you've lived with, likely accelerated it, the doctor said gently. But it also means early intervention could make a major difference. Lena let out a bitter laugh. So being poor almost killed me. No, the doctor said. Being invisible did. Elliot shifted uncomfortably. A nurse hurried in, whispering something to the doctor. The doctor's face tightened. What? Lena demanded. The doctor hesitated. Mr. Vale's surgery is taking longer than expected. Mara felt Lena's hand tremble and grabbed it without thinking. Is he dying? Lena asked. No, the doctor said. But there were complications. Lena nodded slowly. Figures. Hours passed. The sky outside lightened slightly, the gray-blue hint of dawn creeping in. Lena hadn't slept. Neither had Mara. Then Elliot's phone buzzed. He read the message, his shoulders sagging just a little. He's out of surgery, Elliot said. Alive. But critical. Lena closed her eyes, relief washing through her before she could stop it. She hated that she cared. When will he wake up? She asked. Unknown, Elliot replied. Lena stood. I want to see him. Elliot hesitated. That facility is restricted. Then unrestrict it, Lena said flatly. Mara squeezed her hand. If he doesn't wake up. He will, Lena interrupted, more fiercely than she expected. As arrangements were made, Lena sat back down, exhaustion finally pressing in. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened window. She didn't look like a billionaire's daughter. She looked like herself, sharp edges, tired eyes, stubborn spine. But something had shifted. The world had named her, claimed her. And she didn't know yet whether that was a gift or a threat. In another city, surrounded by machines and guarded by silence, Adrian Vale lay unconscious, his body fighting battles it had avoided for decades. And somewhere deep within that fight, the truth he'd never faced was no longer content to wait. The morning would bring answers. Or consequences. The drive to the specialized facility took place in a quiet convoy just as the city was waking up. Lena sat in the back of the car, watching streets blur past. Cafes opening, people jogging, a normal morning unfolding as if nothing in her life had just cracked open. Mara sat beside her, knees bouncing, eyes alert to everything. You don't have to go, Mara said for the third time. I do, Lena replied. If I don't, I'll imagine things worse than the truth. The building they arrived at didn't look like a hospital. Glass curved upward like a frozen wave, guarded entrances humming softly with scanners and silent doors. Everything about it said control, money, precision. Inside, the air smelled different, cleaner, sharper. A woman in a tailored coat met them at the entrance, her smile practiced. Lena, she said gently, I'm Dr. Hargreave. I oversee Mr. Vale's care. Lena nodded. Is he awake? Not yet, the doctor replied. But he's stable enough for visitors. Briefly, Mara squeezed Lena's hand before letting go. "I'll be right here." The corridors were hushed, insulated from the outside world. Lena felt suddenly aware of her heartbeat, each thud echoing louder than it should. They stopped outside a room with glass walls shaded halfway down. Dr. Hargreave paused. "Before you go in, there's something you should know." Lena didn't look at her. "There's always something. Mr. Vale's condition," the doctor continued, "will require ongoing treatment. Even if he recovers fully from surgery, his lifestyle must change." Lena let out a quiet breath. "You mean slow down?" "Yes," the doctor said, "and face things he's avoided." The door slid open. Adrian lay in the bed, pale against the white sheets, machines breathing and blinking for him. Tubes traced lines across his body like fragile lifelines. He looked smaller than Lena remembered, stripped of everything that made him untouchable. For a moment, she couldn't move. "You can sit," the doctor whispered, then stepped back. Lena approached slowly, each step heavier than the last. She pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, hands folded tightly in her lap. "You look terrible," she said softly. "So I guess you kept your promise." His chest rose and fell, steady but shallow. "I don't know what you are to me," Lena continued, voice barely above a whisper. "And I don't know what you think you are to me. But I didn't come here because of money. Or answers. I came because you didn't die when you should have. And that means something." She swallowed. "They say I have what you have. That whatever's broken in you, it's in me too." Her jaw tightened. "I don't know how I feel about that." Adrian's fingers twitched slightly. Lena froze. She leaned forward. "Hey." His eyelids fluttered, then slowly, impossibly, opened. For a moment, his gaze was unfocused. Then it found her. "You stayed," he whispered. Her throat tightened. "Don't make a big deal out of it." A faint smile tugged at his lips before fading into a wince. "You're bad at lying." "So are you," she shot back, then paused. "They told you, didn't they?" "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "About you." Silence stretched between them, heavy but unbroken. "I didn't know," he said, "about any of it." "I know," Lena replied. "Everyone keeps saying that." Adrian's eyes searched her face, as if memorizing it. "You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness. Not closeness. Not even time." "Good," Lena said, "because I'm not offering those things." He nodded. "Fair." Another pause. "But," Lena added, "I don't want to disappear again. And I don't want you deciding my life because you feel guilty." Adrian's expression sharpened despite his weakness. "I won't." "You say that now." "I'm saying it as a condition," he replied. "Not a promise." That surprised her. Before she could respond, the door slid open. Elliot entered, his expression strained. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but there's an issue." Lena didn't turn around. "Of course there is." Elliot hesitated. The genetic match wasn't the only thing that came back. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. "Go on." "There are records," Elliot said. "Old ones. A birth certificate amendment request. Never finalized." Lena stood slowly. "You're telling me someone tried to erase me?" Elliot's silence answered for him. Adrian's voice dropped, dangerous despite its softness. "Who?" Elliot swallowed. "Your former partners. Early days. They saw potential complications. They wanted certainty." "Certainty of what?" Lena demanded. "That there would be no claims," Elliot said. "No heirs. No vulnerabilities." The room felt suddenly too small. Adrian's hand clenched weakly around the sheet. You let them do this. Elliot shook his head quickly. You were barely 25. You didn't know. They moved faster than you could see. Lena laughed, sharp and hollow. So I wasn't invisible. I was inconvenient. Adrian looked at her, pain etched deep into his face. I will fix this. No, Lena said immediately. You won't fix me. Or rewrite me. Or buy back time. What do you want then? Adrian asked. She met his gaze steadily. The truth. Publicly. And the choice to walk away if I want to. Elliot stiffened. That would be complicated. Everything about this is complicated, Lena said. But lies are worse. Adrian nodded slowly. You'll have it. Elliot's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it and swore under his breath. What now? Adrian asked. The media, Elliot said. They've got wind of the transfer. And of the girls. Lena felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. What girls? Elliot looked at her. You. And Mara. What are they saying? Adrian asked. Elliot hesitated. That the billionaire was rescued by homeless teenagers. And that one of them may be connected to him. Lena's heart raced. They don't know anything. They know enough to start asking, Elliot replied. Adrian closed his eyes. Then it's begun. Lena looked at him sharply. What has? The part where the world decides who you are, Adrian said quietly. Before you get to. Outside the glass walls, footsteps echoed, voices growing louder. Somewhere down the corridor, cameras clicked. Lena straightened her shoulders. Then I guess we're out of time. Adrian opened his eyes and met her gaze. No, he said. We're just out of hiding. Security moved quickly, but not quickly enough to stop the murmur building outside the room. Lena could hear it now. Voices layered with curiosity and hunger, the unmistakable sound of a story being born without permission. Dr. Hargreaves stepped back in, her calm finally cracking. We need to move Mr. Vale to a private wing. Immediately. Adrian shifted slightly, pain flickering across his face. Do it. Lena stayed where she was. And us. The doctor hesitated. That's complicated. Lena let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Of course it is. Mara appeared at the doorway, eyes wide. There are cameras. Like real cameras. Not phones. Elliot ran a hand through his hair. We can manage this. Controlled statement. Limited access. Lena turned on him. You don't get to manage me. Before Elliot could respond, the door at the end of the corridor burst open. A voice cut through the air, loud and demanding. Mr. Vale, is it true you were saved by homeless girls? Another voice followed. Is one of them your daughter? Security pushed back, but the questions kept coming, sharp and relentless. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his expression was resolved in a way Lena hadn't seen before. Bring me a microphone. Elliot's head snapped up. Absolutely not. Yes, Adrian said quietly. Now. You're not stable enough, Dr. Hargreave warned. I'm stable enough to tell the truth, Adrian replied. Which is more than I can say for the last 20 years. Lena felt her chest tighten. You don't have to do this. I do, Adrian said, meeting her gaze. Because if I don't speak, they'll speak for you. The security team hesitated, then parted slightly as a hospital communications officer hurried in, pale and flustered. Mr. Vale, we can set up a brief statement from the conference room. Here, Adrian said. They're already listening. The murmurs outside hushed, as if the building itself sensed what was coming. A microphone was placed near Adrian's bed. The red light blinked on. Adrian took a breath that clearly hurt, then spoke anyway. "Yes," he said, voice weak but steady. "I was saved by 2 young women everyone else chose not to see. And yes, one of them is standing right here." A ripple moved through the corridor. "My survival," Adrian continued, "has forced me to confront truths I avoided for decades. About my health, about my past, and about my responsibility." Lena felt every camera turn toward her, felt the weight of eyes she couldn't see. "I will not speculate publicly about family," Adrian said. "What I will say is this: Lena owes me nothing. Not explanations. Not gratitude. Not silence." Elliot squeezed his eyes shut. "The world is very quick to assign value," Adrian went on. "It decided Lena had none until it thought she might be connected to me. That is the real scandal." For a moment, no one spoke. Then a reporter called out, "Are you confirming she's your daughter?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. He looked at Lena instead. She held his gaze, heart pounding. This was the moment everything could tilt, one way or another. "I am confirming," Adrian said slowly, "that she has my condition, and that she was denied care when she needed it. Those facts matter more than labels." The noise exploded, shouting, questions overlapping, security shouting back. Dr. Hargreave leaned in urgently. "We need to move you. Now." Adrian nodded, then looked at Lena one last time. "Whatever happens next," he said quietly, "remember, you get to choose." As they wheeled him away, Lena stood frozen, the sound crashing around her like waves. Mara grabbed her arm. "Lena," she said, "we should go. Now." They slipped through a side corridor just as security closed ranks behind them. The air outside the building felt colder, sharper. Flashbulbs popped as they emerged, reporters shouting questions Lena refused to hear. A black car pulled up, door opening. "Get in," a security guard urged. Inside the car, the noise dulled instantly. Lena pressed her forehead to the window, breathing hard. Mara broke the silence. "Well, that was a lot." Lena nodded numbly. "They'll tear us apart." "Maybe," Mara said. "Or maybe they'll finally listen." Lena didn't answer. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, an unfamiliar number. She stared at it, then answered. "Yes." A woman's voice spoke calmly. "Lena, my name is Ruth Calder. I represent parties connected to your birth records. We need to talk before things go any further." Lena's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About agreements that were made," Ruth replied, "and ones that may no longer hold." The call ended. Mara stared at her. That didn't sound friendly. "It wasn't," Lena said quietly. Back inside the facility, Adrian was rushed into the private wing. Pain flared, but his mind was sharp, racing ahead to consequences he could already feel closing in. Elliot followed, voice low and urgent. "You just triggered a legal storm. Old partners. Investors. People who thought your legacy was contained." "Good," Adrian said. "Let them come." "There's something else," Elliot added. "The woman who contacted Lena, Ruth Calder, she works for the trust that was set up years ago." "The one you never signed." Adrian's eyes snapped open. "That trust was supposed to disappear." "It didn't," Elliot said. "It's been waiting. And now that Lena is visible." Adrian exhaled slowly, understanding dawning. "They're going to try to control her." "Yes," Elliot admitted. "Through money. Through pressure. Through fear." Adrian closed his eyes, jaw tightening. "Not if I get there first." In the car speeding away from the hospital, Lena looked out at the city she thought she knew, now strange and threatening. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from an unknown number. You don't have to be part of his world. But his world won't leave you alone. She locked the screen, heart pounding. Neither of them knew it yet, but the crash had done more than break metal and bone. It had exposed a truth powerful enough to save them both. Or destroy everything around them. The storm didn't end with headlines. It ended quietly, the way the most important things often do. Weeks passed before the world saw Adrian Vale again. When he finally appeared, it wasn't in a boardroom or on a stage surrounded by power. It was in a simple rehabilitation center courtyard, sunlight cutting through trees, cameras kept at a distance by his own request. He walked slowly, assisted, thinner than anyone remembered, but unmistakably present. Beside him stood Lena. Not behind him. Not hidden. Beside. The lawsuits came first. Old partners scrambling to protect sealed documents, trusts designed to erase inconvenient lives, contracts written with cold precision. Adrian didn't fight them quietly. He opened everything. Records unsealed. Settlements voided. Names spoken out loud for the first time in decades. The same world that once bent to his silence now watched him dismantle it piece by piece. The media tried to turn Lena into a symbol. A miracle. A scandal. A redemption arc. She refused all of it. When asked who she was, she said, "I'm not a story. I'm a person who survived being ignored." That sentence traveled farther than any headline. Mara stayed close, unimpressed by money, unimpressed by security, unimpressed by anyone who suddenly acted kind because kindness was now fashionable. She moved into a small apartment provided by a foundation Adrian created, but she chose the neighborhood herself. Close to schools. Close to shelters. Close to people who still needed looking at. Lena underwent treatment. Carefully. On her terms. There were good days and bad ones, moments of anger so sharp they left her shaking, moments of unexpected peace that scared her even more. Adrian never forced himself into those moments. He learned how to wait, how to listen, how to be present without trying to fix everything. For the first time in his life, he learned what it meant to earn closeness. One afternoon, months later, Lena stood in the same underpass where the crash had happened. The concrete was still scarred. The city had already forgotten. She hadn't. Adrian stood a few steps back, giving her space. "You could have died here," she said. "Yes," he replied. "You should have died here," she added, not cruelly, but honestly. He nodded. "I know." She turned to face him. "The only reason you didn't is because two girls everyone else stepped over decided you mattered." Adrian met her gaze. "That's why I'm still here." The hospital that once turned Lena away changed its policies under public pressure and private funding, but more importantly, under accountability. No one was treated without care again. Not because a billionaire demanded it, but because the world watched what happened when someone didn't. Years later, Adrian's company no longer topped lists for profit alone. It became known for something far rarer: transparency. The boardroom changed. So did the halls of power. Slowly, unevenly, but unmistakably. Adrian never returned to the man he had been before the crash. He never wanted to. Lena didn't become an heiress in the way people expected. She didn't step into wealth and forget where she came from. She studied. She questioned. She argued. She challenged systems instead of benefiting quietly from them. When offered silence in exchange for comfort, she refused. "Comfort without justice is just another cage," she said once. The world listened. One evening, long after the cameras moved on, Lena sat on the steps of a shelter she now volunteered at. Adrian joined her, careful and unannounced. "You could have walked away," he said. from all of this. So could you, she replied. He smiled faintly. I almost did. 4 years. She looked at him, really looked at him, not as a billionaire, not as a symbol, but as a man who had nearly vanished without ever being seen. I don't forgive the past, Lena said. But I'm not living in it any more. That's more than I deserve, Adrian replied. She shook her head. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what we do now. They sat in silence, the kind that doesn't ache. Somewhere nearby, a young girl laughed. Somewhere else, a doctor signed off on treatment that would have been denied before. Somewhere, a homeless man was seen instead of stepped around. And somewhere deep within the city, the place where metal once screamed and lives nearly ended, the rain fell again, this time without tragedy. The world didn't change overnight. It never does. But it shifted. Because a billionaire learned the cost of being unseen. Because 2 homeless girls refused to look away. And because one life, saved in the rain, finally understood that survival means nothing if it isn't shared. And that sometimes the crash that breaks you is the only thing powerful enough to wake you up.